Welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. This is the new style of shows that we are going to be having on the Underground Heroes podcast. Yes, we will still have the Underground Heroes stories that we've had in the past. Brandon and I wanted to give you a little bit extra. And so we're adding these episodes. And no, it's not wisdom that Brandon and I possess. Let us be the first ones to say, we seek and desire wisdom every single day for ourselves. And if you look at the definition of what wisdom is, it's the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment, the quality of being wise. The amazing thing is that we're able to be part of Heroes, the men's mastermind, and we gain wisdom from these men constantly, every day. And what we want to do is we want to give you insight into that. We want to give you information. We want to bring the training to you. We want to give you a glimpse of what we experience in the mastermind through this Wisdom Wednesday podcast. So what we say is get wisdom. Let's get after it.
I don't need recognition. I'm on a mission. I'm paying dues. I'm in position. I'm staying up. It's getting late. You're doing good. I'm doing great.
All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Underground Heroes podcast, Wisdom Wednesday edition. We actually have a special episode tonight. I'm joined by my wife, Gina Villanueva. Gina, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everyone.
So we got an exciting episode for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about the 3 choices that supercharged our marriage. Yes, we are supercharged. Or what's the cool term they use now? Power couple?
Oh, I mean,
that'll work
that's
too.
That's pretty bold, but I'll take it if that's what you want to title it.
Well, we're heroes.
That's
power.
I think we're a pretty power couple. But
Not like worldly power, like we come out on Us magazine or we wear fancy clothes that match or anything like that. I don't know. What are power couples these days?
I think people quantify them as like they got it together. So I don't know.
All right, I don't know if that's us.
I don't know.
But what we're hopefully going to be sharing with you tonight is just our story and some things that we've really have put intention behind. That is something we can say for sure without a shadow of a doubt that what we're going to share with you today are 3 choices that we intentionally work towards implementing it into our life. And these 3 choices have truly given us closeness, intimacy, and just so much more fun and joy in our relationship, wouldn't you say?
I agree. Yeah, definitely. I feel like we've never been closer. I feel like we have more joy than we've ever had before. There's more grace, but there's also a lot of, I think we both do our best for each other too. We hold the standard high, but there's a lot of grace, but also a lot of joy, which I think is like a pivotal like place to be in a relationship.
Yeah, I agree. Joy is something that's not often talked about. But we're going to hopefully give you some tips on how to get there. So the first thing that we're going to go through, though, is I'm going to actually put my wife on the spot and have her set the context from where these choices came. So I think we're going to go back to almost 7 years ago now, coming up here
Almost eight, babe. We got married a year before Sicily.
Oh, we're going to go that far back?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think to when we first got married.
Okay, all right.
2014. Yeah.
Okay, to when we first got married. So set the stage. Where were we almost 8 years ago, getting married? Lay out the context for the audience in terms of our relationship.
Well, I think like every new couple, you get married and it's the wedding and it's fabulous and everything's amazing. And then for us, we went on our honeymoon. We had a wonderful time. We moved into our first apartment together, ever living together. And I think really we both had, I think, some vision of what our marriage would look like, but they weren't necessarily the same vision.
For sure.
And to put on top of like the new marriage, we got pregnant, I think 2 months after we got married. Mm-hmm. So throw in hormones and a new journey. And I think there was just 2 different concepts of what life was going to be like after marriage, even though we had been together 12 years. So you would think we had a lot of continuity. We had a lot of like things we talked about, but we still were struggling. I think we had lots of arguments. There was a lot of chaos, a lot of stress. I think it was very tumultuous. We'd have really high days, and then we'd have bickering days, and then we had our daughter, and things got like better. We had all this joy. I think
the honeymoon stage again.
That's right. The baby kicked in, and we were like so in love. And then we went through more chaos and more arguing because again, we were on two different pages maybe about what it was going to be like once we had a child and how we were going to raise them. And you were, well, how would you classify yourself during that time with our first daughter?
Crazy.
Crazy,
fanatically intentional.
Yes.
It was about doing my best.
That's right. It was very beautiful, and what you wanted for our life and for our daughter was wonderful. But there's just very high stakes and lots of, I think things that I don't know how I would say that. Things that a standard that you had that was very high for me and you, but it felt like a lot of pressure for me.
Sure.
Even though you were wonderful and you would tell me all the time I was doing a great job, but we still would have these moments of like very stress getting it together. And I think we went a whole year without any date nights. It was all about our baby. And we decided, I think at that time, actually, I don't even think I decided. I was oblivious, just like doing the mom life. I think thankfully for you had the wisdom and the knowledge to feel like, oh, we should probably make a change because it's not a healthy marriage we have. Even though we had a healthy family life, I think our marriage wasn't as strong as I think you wanted it to be. And I think maybe God put that on your heart to like make some changes, which was like the first big change that we made that led to the other two things that really helped us.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that change was the first Christmas that we had after having our first daughter. I've spoken about it before on other podcasts. I purchased a calendar at Target, and I designated and planned and prepped 2 date nights per month for the whole next year. So technically there was 24 date nights scheduled, coordinated, planned, outlined for my wife and I to go on. It didn't turn out perfect, but for sure we had gone on more date nights that following year than we had gone on, I don't even know, in the last 2 years prior. But besides the date night, I think the big thing that we were looking at was just being intentional. Going back to what my wife said about the chaos and the arguing and the stress, I think this is in reference to us not really remembering or talking about the middle part of the fairy tale, the mundane pieces that need to happen in a marriage that create such...
They are the marriage.
Yeah,
those are the marriage.
Exactly.
That is the marriage.
Right. I wrote about this recently on a previous blog, why I hate fairy tales. And that's one of the reasons, right? They give us this skewed vision of how quick and beautiful things are in life, right? You watch in 90 minutes, 2 hours, and our subconscious recognizes these stories, and we hope and we imagine that when we get married, it's going to be that easy. It's going to happen so smoothly. As she said, I had a vision of what our marriage was going to be like. She had a vision, but we were missing the communication piece. And, it wasn't until we got together, we started making time for each other. We started really choosing to be intentional about every aspect of our marriage that we started seeing some differences being made there.
I think, too, that we discovered that the mundane really isn't the mundane. If you're together, if you're implementing these 3 choices, these 3 things, those moments really become the fairy tale because it's the everyday that's really joyful. You can find highlights and just doing life together. Me and Sammy's favorite thing, I think, to say to each other in this like super sweet season of our life is just like, I love doing life with you. It's like, I love taking the kids to the dentist and going to the grocery store, washing the car, and feeling like we killed it planning together and executing like our regular days together, right? It doesn't take a vacation to just feel so grateful for the family that we have built and that we have in each other. So I think that is the beauty in it. The mundane becomes the beautiful part. And I'm grateful because there's a lot more mundane days than there is fairy tale days. So I'm grateful we've kind of worked that out for now. I'm sure we'll have it's peaks and valleys. Marriage is not perfect. And even though we know these things and we know the choices to make, it's really easy to stop making them. So you have to be intentional, and you have to keep someone like Sammy in your life who he'll always remind us. Thank God for heroes, right? It's a good place to be intentional and remind yourself and give yourself challenges and keep us on task. It's a side, what I say, fringe benefit of being associated with the group on the outside connected.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that, babe. That's awesome. But one of the things I wanted to highlight is, the date nights were giving us time back to each other.
Right.
And getting us connected as a couple, which is the priority.
So that's your first, what did we say? Your first choice to make?
Yeah, the first choice definitely was choosing to be intentional about our date nights, right? We sat down, we actually got jars.
Right.
What are they? Mason jars, and we put date night out, date night in. We put a bunch of ideas. After that first year, after they were all planned, we kind of...
Well, I'll just say, like, if I can budge in for a minute, I would say if you're a man and you haven't gotten your wife a Christmas present and you buy yourself a calendar at Target and just look at dates once a month even, I guarantee your wife will be so blown away that you just thought about spending time with her. And it's cheaper, right? You can literally spend month by month. And I think that's something that we have really learned how to do it with our budget and how to do it well and how to make the best of whether it's going to be an expensive, I tell Sammy, like Rockefeller date where he thinks we're rich, or if it's going to be a date where we find something that's free, or it's going to be a date where we're home and we can still do something at home where we don't need a babysitter. Because we know that there's so many seasons when you have little kids. We have 3 little kids. It might not be possible to go out every Friday. It's hard on our children. It's a little bit harder on us. It becomes a little more stressful. Plus, monetarily, that can be a stretch. But I think for us, our schedule that works for us is every other week. We go out and every other week we come in and we prioritize babysitting in our budget because we know we are a good investment. That's how we look at our date nights. Is our investment. 100%. So I would say, if you want to start with the calendar, that's a great present. Christmas is around the corner. If not, I think, date night.
If not, do it. That's a great idea.
Well, if you've already bought your present, I would say maybe add on. I mean, it's a little note, right? That's going to be your new season, your new little session. And I think I don't, if I'm not budging in, but I think if you can just narrow down a schedule for date nights that works for your budget and works for your family, a day every week that you dedicate to your relationship, and then take turns planning it or do a jar like we've done in the past. We've even subscribed for a little bit to like date night boxes when we were inside. We weren't a huge fan of those, but we love to like cook when we're home, make a new side dish. We made eggnog recently from scratch. Any little thing we realize that just takes us out of our element of being mom and dad and all the hustle and bustle of life and just time to enjoy each other and talk is just a game changer in connecting with each other and taking us out of our normative.
Two tips for the date nights before we go on to the next one. First tip is brainstorm and plan ideas ahead of time and throw them into a box, a jar, a hat, and pick them out according to whatever day that is. If you're going to do an out day, have a day out or night out bucket that you can pull from. Maybe a local restaurant that you want to try, a local hike that you want to do. There's an activity that you want to both try. Throw those ideas in there. And of course, the more that you discuss with your partner, the better. The second tip is the at-home dates. This was a big one for me. You can't just do the typical jump on the couch and turn on Netflix. It might seem cool on social media to say Netflix and chill, but when you're married, it's Netflix and sleep. Go back to sleep, right? So,
or at least for me.
You're doing life a lot and the day is long. And so my suggestion is to change outfits, change the situation, go to the dinner table, cook in the kitchen together, listen to music, do something in the house that you wouldn't normally do in your day-to-day
Right.
or on a regular night.
My two suggestions would be pick a day and stick to it and prioritize that. That day is specifically for your spouse. And really, you should try everything in your power to make sure that nothing comes in between you and that day. And if you have to reschedule, I mean, go ahead. But me and Sammy are very tried and true that like our Fridays are for each other. And another great tip that we got that was amazing, if you have small kids, we have a 6, a 4, and a 2-year-old. At the end of the day, a lot of times we're really wiped at 8 p.m. when everybody's going to bed. And we used to do date nights after the babies went to bed. But we were able to prioritize finding a babysitter that really worked for us and that knew our children and we felt comfortable with during wakeable hours. And if you can work from home or you can get off early or even just leave your house at 5, or we try to do a day date. So from 4 to like 8:30 p.m. And what this does, it's genius, not my credit. One of my girlfriends came up with this, but you allow your spouse and you to get out before you're drained, before your day is, you're so tired from raising your kiddos, because we're all trying to be intentional parents. And you really get a refreshed date night out. Those are the days we do out. And then like, a couple key hacks to this is you're spending less money on babysitting because you're going to go out for like 4.5 hours that you would have gone out after the kids go to bed, but then you're home at midnight, which you're all tired, and you've done a whole day with your kids. But this way, you get to leave before you've spent yourself the whole day, and then you return when your kids have gone to bed, hopefully. If you have a good bedtime routine, that will be more helpful. But then you can continue your date night at home at 8:30 or 9 when your kids are already sleeping, your babysitter can go to bed, saves you money, saves you energy. I think it's just like the best hack we've ever discovered. I try to tell everybody that we meet about it, to take a day date, not
That's
just
right.
a night date. And I think we found doing night dates, there's like a very limited amount of things you can do after 8 p.m. when our kids go to bed. And it got like kind of like, oh, we're doing the same thing all the time. When you wake up or you refresh yourself with some day dates, there's a lot of diversity. You can go to the museum,
Yeah.
you can go to an art fair, you can go outside, in the summer months you can go to a farmer's market.
Yeah, they're fun. They're a blast. So have fun with that. We could probably spend a whole podcast
I'm
on
sure.
date nights and date days. But, Gina said something that transitions well into what we want to talk about next, right? Because after that first year of being with a child and having our baby, and then I give her the calendar, we go on the dates, and our relationship we're getting closer in our relationship. We're reconnecting again. We're having a blast. We still have a little bit of stress from not necessarily being aligned on maybe finances and activities. And now we have a young family, we have a young kid, and there's things that we have to consider for all of us, right? It's not just Gina and I, it's Gina and I and our new baby. And of course, we're looking to have more at that time. And so there was things that we still were lacking. And this is when we came across a book that helped us make our second choice, which was ensuring that we have a business night together, a planning day together, where we look at the operations of our family, where we look at the calendar of our family, where we get together weekly and we check in with our progress towards what our goal is for the next 3 months, the next 6 months, for the next year. And I know this might seem a bit different from what's talked about out there, because this is not a business conversation, right? We're treating our relationship and our marriage and our family like we would a business.
I mean, your family is a business.
That's right.
Whether or not you want to realize that or acknowledge that, it's your choice. But if the closer you are to realizing that, I mean, you have budgets, you have meeting, you have like so many events to get to. There are so many things that make your family akin to a business. And if you treat it like that, you'll run so much more smoothly. And you can prioritize better because your business is important, and so is your family.
That's right.
So one should never be prioritized over the other. I think treating it with that kind of respect helps put it in priority where it needs to be.
Yeah, can you give them, the listeners, some context into how it was when we first began this, like after we read that book together and we discussed setting out some time to get together weekly to check in with each other? Like, what was that process like?
I think that we talk about getting together a lot, and it sounds like a very trivial, like, ideal, but it really allows you to align and then figure out where you can help each other. Like, the marriage is such a blessing because you really have a partner for life. And then, like, planning allows you to utilize your partner's strengths as best as possible, like a business would, right? You don't look at your business partner and then just assume he's going to do everything that you need him to do. You meet on a regular basis and you talk about your company and where it's going. And the book that we read, which is called...
I'll pull it up. I think it's 3 choices every frantic family needs to make.
Yeah, so I think after we read that book, we realized you really need to get together and you really need to decide, where is your family going? What is your goals? There are so many good things. I highly recommend that book to every family. It really makes you put into perspective where your family's spending their time, how many extracurriculars you're going to encounter. We have an activity that we still do that's called a rally cry, where you unify for the next 3 months. What is something you're going to focus on as a family? What's important? What's going to drive you forward as a family? What are the things that you need to continue doing to survive and be, like they call them, standard objectives? What are those things that need to be done all the time, no matter what? And then what are the things we're going to stretch ourselves to be better at, to move us in that direction forward? And I think that it's just so great. There's a lot of key things. I highly recommend that book.
Yeah, so we'll put it in the show notes as well. So it's the 3 big questions for every frantic family. And the setting, the way that the book opens is fantastic because it described where we were at that during that season. It described a family, a husband and a wife, brushing their teeth frantically in the morning, rushing off to work, exchanging words and saying, you'll get the kids to soccer. We have that church event. Don't forget about mom's birthday. And, right, it's just exchanging all these words and trying to get through life with only these small moments of passing and not really taking time to plan it out or be intentional with our, as Gina said, our business, our family.
I think it's the difference between, like, feeling like you're just running from one thing to the next, or feeling like you're prepared and you can make good choices and not feel so like you're not feeling so frantic to just, like, barely make it to the event with what you need to make it with, but you can really say, hey, we have this coming up. What do we want to be at? What can we skip? What can we maybe, that's not going to be a priority this week? And then let me prepare ahead of time so that when day comes, we're not running around. You're not like, oh, I didn't know because you told me 5 minutes before my work meeting, which means he didn't hear me. And I'm asking him if we need a babysitter for something. It's a very, very good read. I think it's really important to get yourself planning. We still meet. And then you know what the cool thing is nobody has to be perfect at this. I think that we just picked up after a break during COVID. It was a very different season for us. We were home all the time. There wasn't a lot going on. And I think that we had different things that we were focused on. And then now that life is picking back up, we realized, wow, we really need to plan again together because it's getting very frantic and everybody's feeling rushed. And that never... if anybody else is in a relationship, I don't think anybody communicates effectively when everybody feels stressed and rushed. And then the kids are going bananas because mom and dad are rushed, and that leads to arguments.
It is like a business. You have crazy employees, the kids, demanding for lunch to be delivered on Wednesdays, right? Just all kind of play areas.
Right. For me, it just saves us money. I can plan for... like when I need to pack lunch, it just lends itself so useful for so many areas, fiscally, relationally. It just is such a great thing. And you plan so many things in your life. Your family should definitely be one that you plan for. I think that was something that we do once a week. We meet up and we just say, I think, is it from the book too that we do our color-coded system where we really rank ourselves like red, yellow, green. How are we doing this last week on these areas? And the book is so informational. It really walks you through this whole way of how you can do these things. I think, what is it called that we wrote about our family? mission statement.
It's like a core values
That's
exercise and like a mission statement as well. So what it does is it gets you to walk through what does your family stand for? Who are you? What are your family's core values? And starting there, it really allows you to, as you move into different seasons of life, to have this lens of clarity when you're focused on achieving a goal, right? Because then you can measure it up against, is this truly important to our family? And if it is, then yes, let's make a plan to go after it all together. But in addition to that, what it does is it reminds you that there still needs to be things that need to be maintained, and that's the standard objectives, right? Because let's say for this season of life, for example, one of the seasons that we were in was launching a business, right? And so that season was one of the top objectives was get profitable as soon as possible, or start making revenue or income as soon as possible. But that doesn't mean that our date nights fell to the wayside, right? So a standard objective for us during that season was maintain date nights. A defining objective to ensure that we were going to get making money and having income come in was, focus in on networking events, send emails or prospect or whatever it was. But it doesn't mean that I was going to forget everything else. And so, again, the book was fantastic. Our point here is you need to set time to get together to plan, to coordinate, to go through the operational aspects of running a successful household and a successful relationship. That leads us to number 3.
Oh.
Planning. Well, affection time.
That's right.
Okay, so wait, what? What are you saying, Sammy? What are you talking about? Yes. Okay, so I will have to admit that I wasn't one for planned affection time. No. I thought it was cheesy. I thought it was not truly genuine. And
I think you thought it would make us boring.
Yes.
You were a boring couple if you had to you had to plan your affectionate time, because like if you were just madly and deeply in love, it would just always happen.
That's right.
And
once again, why I hate fairy tales.
Right. Right. And I think for me,
let's clarify. So planned affection time. We have a set time daily, really, and then a weekly goal to be affectionate with each other, to be intimate with each other. And that is a top priority for us. And it's interesting that I had this mindset before, that I was thinking that if we planned that, it would make us boring or cheesy or not truly genuinely interested in that
like
act.
It was fake.
Yes.
Like it was a fake thing.
And I say it's weird because look at all the other success we've had with being intentional with these other things, right? The date nights, being intentional with that. Our planning days, our operation days as a family. Each one of those has led to so much success in our relationship.
Right.
I don't know why I was resistant to that.
It's like you forget that it's just prioritizing. Planning is prioritizing something. And when you care about something, you prioritize it. And the way you prioritize it is make time for it. And so it does kind of it feels odd to do. I think 2 resources that really helped us out with this is we listened to a bunch of podcasts from Esther Perel, and she was talking a lot about that, like statistically and in her research, that like when you planned affection time, it actually was super helpful to your relationship, and it helped keep it a priority. And it was actually like not less effective than if it was spontaneous, right? I think that was like our first like big, okay. And then she gave tons of statistics on how it was helpful and successful couples that do it and what that means for you if you do, prioritize it. And then we listened to a couple studies, I think Bible studies, on a book that we love, which is called A Lifelong Love. And it was all about like taking the shame away from making sure that you get your intimate time in, and how important it is to each, the wife and the husband, and all the different reasons for both genders why it's so important, and how it is like a mental reset. I think both of those resources helped us like really narrow down how important it is for both people, not just for men, which I think is sometimes misconstrued, that it's like really men are the ones who want to get the appointment in. But I think how much like women, we really benefit from being affectionate with our partners as well. And I think, for us, scheduling it, I think one of the big things that we realized too when we started scheduling it was time. Like I think most people think the end of the day is the time to be affectionate. When you have 3 toddlers, the end of the day is definitely not always the time to be affectionate.
We already told you, Netflix and sleep, right? So the chill part is, it's not necessarily always there.
Right. So for us, we are blessed to have a work from home schedule. And so sometimes, well, our appointment is in the middle of the day.
That's right.
Well, midday.
That's right. And, it's important is that, again, you got to get together on what works for you.
Right.
There's
it could be at midnight if that's what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's really going back to your planning day, talking to your significant other and saying, hey, let's put this in the calendar. What's important to us, right? Don't get 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into a relationship and wonder where that part of the relationship went if you haven't made intentional time for it. Talking through this really makes me think about when you slow down and prioritize, as Gina said, what to say yes to, then you gain the power to say no. And that's really the biggest thing for each one of these categories, right? Date night, man, I know every Friday, that's my wife and I, that's our time. Which
is so funny because I think in the beginning of our marriage, that was a tough point in our marriage, Friday nights. I think I would come home and assume that day was reserved for me and our new little life together. And sometimes you would decide that was something you were going to go join a friend. And there's nothing wrong with joining a friend. That's great. I just, like you said, we weren't planning. We didn't have time set necessarily aside intentionally. So it was I was disappointed, right? I would be disappointed and then that would cause an argument, right? And so I think now if you go out, you don't go out on a Friday. You go out with somebody else or I go out on a different day. And if people invite me out on Friday, I say I'm really sorry. Could we do a different day? That's our date night day. Occasionally we do throw in a double date night.
Yeah, that's fun.
And that is super fun. And that's like Sammy said, you have the power to say no or yes. It's oh, hey, honey, would you mind doing a double date night? And sometimes we'll have to catch ourselves and be hey, we've had 3 double date nights in a row. We need to just be by ourselves again.
That's right. It's because we're cool. We have lots of friends.
We're blessed and we have lots of friends.
That's right. But, that is, I think, a big point I want to just drive home is setting time aside, planning, getting together with your significant other. It allows for you all to join together and say yes to the things that are important. What are the priorities? And then once those things are established, then it becomes easier to make the choices and say no to the things that maybe are just distractions or extra and can pull you away from the most important things in your life right now.
And those are the moments that you really start to be together. Those are the things, and you start feeling you're constantly having to pull your spouse back in the right direction. You're running towards something together. And then when you see your spouse making the choices you agreed to together, you really feel it really feels so great to just have a partner in life that's helping you. As we get older, we really realize there are few people that you can truly count on to make life easier, and that will be there no matter what. And your spouse is definitely, you should feel like that. In my opinion, to me, that's the fairy tale, is knowing that Sammy and I, no matter what, we got each other's back and we're going to be there to make it easier for each other. And we're not there to make it harder. We're not, we're going to do it together. We're going to figure it out. We're going to come up with a plan and we're going to run together. And that's where all the joy comes from. The 3:00 appointment, the joy comes from there.
Yes, indeed.
The date night. And even the planning, it's not always the most fun thing. We're not oh, we can't wait to plan. But I'm always grateful when we did. I'm always grateful for the week that comes up. We definitely feel less stressed out. We're prepared. We can make good choices for our family. I can know that, hey, if I skip making lunches tonight at 8 p.m. because I'm a little tired, that's going to make our whole day crazy tomorrow. So I'll push through a little harder. I'll make it easier for us the next day. I'll make sure that Sammy's got a clean office if he needs one, or he hasn't had an iron shirt for a really long time. But
wrinkle release spray, hack 101 right there.
But that's another choice. It's he rather me be available for 3:00 appointment than iron his shirt.
No, 100%.
But you know what? I maybe would have spent time in the past ironing shirts for 2 hours thinking that I'm doing the best thing as a wife. But really, he doesn't need that. What really drives your spouse, part of planning is hey, what really helps my spouse out, right? Oh man, I really see when I do the laundry, wow, she's so excited. That bought me back some time. And now she can do, something else, or he can do something else. So yeah, I think for us, the 3:00 appointment is also just another planning. Like you said, it's like a part of the piece of planning, which is, I guess, all three of our choices really involve planning.
Yeah, intentionality and planning. And just to give them to you one more time, the 3 choices that seriously just supercharged our marriage. Making a designated date night for each other, or a date day for each other, right? As we said, ours is Friday. So that's number 1 choice that we made. The second choice is having a planning day or a planning night where you get together, you look at your goals, you look at your weekly activities, you look at the season of life that you're in. Are you on track to hit that goal for the 6 months, the year, for that quarter, whatever it is? Checking in with not just the goal, but of course not letting the rest of the household fall apart either, right? So planning and coordinating all the details for a successful house. And then lastly, of course, the planned affection time. Making sure that you move aside maybe some feelings that you may have, like I did, and just be opened to making sure that you schedule time to be intimate and to be affectionate towards each other, because it's done wonders for us and it continues to do that for us. So those are the 3 things that truly transformed and supercharged our marriage. What we want to do now is we want to encourage you to take some action on these. Just like every single episode, we don't want you just sitting and listening. We want you to take some action. So the first thing is we want you to take these 3 things and put them into your life. Implement these dates into your life if you're in a relationship. Even if you're not, I think having some intentional time to plan is something that's really important. We'd also love for you to join the private Facebook group. And what we're going to be doing over the next day or so, over the next week, is talking about these topics. So we'll release this podcast on there, and we are going to open up the conversation for all the men that are on the private Facebook group. The show notes will have the link to the private Facebook group. And then the last thing is to join our weekly Heroes Power Up email. This is an email where you're going to get a message from Brandon and I, where you're going to get great podcasts like this with special guests like my wife, where there's some wisdom that she's just dropping on us from relationship perspectives. You're going to have new social media posts, blog posts, all kinds of different information concerning Heroes and the membership. So those are the 3 things that you're going to take action on, or that we encourage you to take action on. Set these 3 dates with your significant other, join the private Facebook group, and join our weekly Heroes Power Up email. All right, everyone. We will see you next time on our Wisdom Wednesday edition.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, let's go. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Underground Heroes podcast, Wisdom Wednesday edition. Before you go, grab your free gift. How do you get your free gift? Well, check out the show notes. We're dropping the link for our private Facebook group. And when you join our private Facebook group, we're giving away our ebook. This ebook is packed with a ton of principles and methods, and it's based on building your financial foundations. So many different chapters that are just filled with golden nuggets, pun intended for sure. Like chapter 2, give your money away, the first step to building wealth. Such good information. We really put a ton of time and effort into this, and we want you to have it for free. So like I said, check out the show notes, click the link to join our private Facebook group, and the gift is yours. And on top of that, you're going to want to stay involved on the Facebook group, because we are reopening membership come January 2022. We'll see you guys soon.